Hey, Jason. How you doing?
Very, very good. Speaking with you, it's been a long time waiting. How's it going with you in the land of rock these days?
Well, very busy, luckily.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
good.
sometimes borderline crazy, but good crazy. So,
So schedules are getting back hectic nowadays.
yes, and I'm glad for that, but some days it can seem overwhelming.
We're seeing a great product here with Resurrection Kings. I mean, the sound quality is going back to your classic tones, and everything's looking good.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Jason. I appreciate that.
Very welcome. How did you get up with this idea to, bring this group together, super group?
Well, it just kind of happened. I got an email from the president of Frontiers asking me if I would be interested in being the guitar player for a project he was putting together that was going to be based around guys with names who made names for themselves in the 80s, having kind of a White Snake, rainbow, Deep Purple type of feel to it. And I was like, absolutely, you count me in. So little by little, they were saying, do you have any songs, that we could, take a listen to as well. So they were also taking. And so the first thing I thought of was a song that Chaz and I had written together, Chaz West, a song called "Living Out Loud," and they loved it. So they thought, wow, that's great. Do you have any more? So I started submitting songs, and then I was getting hooked up with Alessandro Del Vecchio, who they chose as the producer of the project. And he was sending me demos of songs that he had written. He's an amazing singer. One of these days, I'd love to do an album with him as the singer.
Hmm.
He's just great all around, one of those all around everything guys. And most of the album was actually written by Alessandro, but the lineup that was starting to take shape, those guys started falling out, either saying they can't do it or don't want to do it or whatever, for whatever reason. So to the naked eye, it was looking like this project was falling apart at the seams. But I just happened to be one of those guys that believes that everything happens for a reason. And next thing I know, the singer who also played bass was out, so we had to get a singer and a bass player. So I thought, first guy I thought of was Chaz, because they liked "Living Out Loud" so much. That song was really kind of written around his range and his vocal technique anyways. So he happened to be available, and so we also needed a bass player, and I thought of Sean McNabb because actually I had seen Sean and Chaz perform together. They were doing these Led Zeppelin covers, and if you closed your eyes, you could just swear you were listening to the CD. They were so good. It was just like, wow, I said, we got to get a band together. And we were like, oh, yeah, let's do it. And, little by little, things started to, life has a way of getting in the way, changing things and touring schedules and so forth. So we had to put it off to the side. And then next thing we know, here it is. Now Sean's available. And then the drummer that they had lined up fell through, and so me and Vinny Appice were actually doing a recording session together. And I said, "Would you be interested?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And boom, next thing we know, we've got a much stronger lineup, and the performances that were being recorded and putting into these songs were much more powerful than they ever would have been to begin with. So it just kind of snowballed, from being a project to now we're in negotiations with managers and agents. We want to, go on tour and support the record and do another one.
Tour's going to be good for this, showcase a whole different, aspect of, music nowadays. What do you think of crowds today, when you see the people going to shows? Has it changed much throughout the years, would you say?
Well, I don't know so much if it's, I think a lot of it has to do with the bands, but I think people miss the 80s type of style because for so long, I mean, there's been some really good bands that have come out, since then. But I think they miss that kind of, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Bad Company, kind of bands, where it's just these guys who just, each guy in the band just plays like are real strong, and it's really hard for me to put into words, but I think people miss that, and I'm glad that the global marketplace has now smiled upon the 80s-based music again, because it's given us guys a chance to come back stronger than ever, and luckily, some of my best playing, some of my best songwriting, and some of my best recording techniques really haven't been captured yet. There's hints of it on this record for sure, but there was some of it on my first solo record, Hidden in Plain Sight. Some of the stuff that that is really me, that really is who I am and what I'm all about. None of that has really come out. I'm not saying anything bad about my years with Dio, because that was the biggest honor and the greatest thing that I'll ever treasure in my entire life. But I was in learning mode, because I was a sponge, and he was pouring every little bit of information that this little sponge could soak up. And now I have a chance to utilize all that information. And unfortunately, there still is a song that Ronnie and I had worked on that hasn't been released yet, that at some point we are going to release, that was actually the last song he ever sang. But, now I get a chance to, kind of, this album, especially Alessandro Del Vecchio and the record company Frontiers, just God bless them, because they were like, just go for it. So I was able to kind of stretch my wings and have artistic license with some of the songs that I didn't even write. I would listen to the songs that they wanted us to record, and I would say, well, I kind of think it needs to be rewritten. And they go, okay, we'll go for it. Or I'd kind of like to play it this way. Okay, we'll go for it. So they ended up kind of nicknaming it Goldyizing. So we Goldyized all these songs that I didn't write. And it just turned out to be cool. Everybody kind of, we all knew each other. I've performed and recorded with Chaz before. I performed with Sean and Chaz. I obviously recorded and performed with Vinny. So we all knew it would work, but we didn't really think it was all going to come together as strong as it did. And so we're really pleased with how it came out.
And Craig, you guys got a great music video. Who did you run to? I think this video has got a good quality to it, that black and white, superior quality. In your guitar solos, we see your technique very well in this as well.
Well, thanks. There's another video coming out called with the song Living Out Loud. That's the song I'm most proud of.
What do you think of making music videos nowadays? Is it as important as it ever was?
I think so. I mean, because now it's the internet has changed things drastically, and record companies are not obsolete. Thank you, Frontiers. And going it alone on the internet isn't exactly the cure-all either, because when people bypass the record company route, they forget that they become the record company themselves.
Right.
So when they try to market themselves on the internet, they may not necessarily be, marketing experts. But the process that's involved in music reaching people's hearts, in order for them to just say, God, I got to have this, is that process is still the same and always will be. And thank God for Frontiers and the lineup of this band. We all hold that process dear, and that process will never change, and until the day we become cyborgs, But so videos, were played a huge part in promoting and letting people know that new product was out. And nowadays, even though it's done through the internet, Frontiers has done it in a way they're kind of like a hybrid. So I think videos are important because at least people kind of know that something's happening again. Whether it's not the radio and it's not on TV, it's over their computer, but it's still the same type of introduction to, hey, guess what? This is about to happen. And it still can take people by surprise, the way the way it used to. Even though the internet has kind of taken away the mystique and taken away the surprise, the way Frontiers has done it, they brought back that kind of, okay, something's about ready to happen, check this out. This is, so that kind of aspect to it they brought back, and I like the way that they've done that.
And they're promoting sometimes as audio, clips, and
right.
I think that's good as well to get a different crowd.
Absolutely, it's kind of like takes the place of, instead of filming 4 videos, you do 2 videos and have a couple other audio releases. Yeah.
And you're saying earlier, when you joined Dio, you're working at your tones or working at your playing and stuff. But I find Dream Evil type of era, you're an incredible guitar player. Your sponge was working very good, I think, back then.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I was definitely in learning mode, and luckily I had learned enough to earn my way in, because it started way back with I was living on. I came from an abusive family, so I chose to live on the streets. And with my last $20 that I made giving guitar lessons, I made a demo, and that demo landed in the hands of Ronnie James Dio right at the time when Jakey Lee had left Rough Cutt to join Ozzy. So there was an opening for Rough Cutt, and everybody in Los Angeles was auditioning for that role as guitar player. And Ronnie said, "We got to get this kid up here, but how do you find a kid who lives in his car, on the streets of San Diego, but they found me, and Ronnie and Wendy actually rented gear for me because I didn't have an amplifier. All I had was a guitar. So they actually rented gear for me. Excuse me. And then the night before, I got word that Ronnie was going to be there on the day of the audition because he wanted to meet me. I was like, I think it's the other way around. I think I'm the one who wants to meet him. And then we had a chance to talk, and I kind of sort of cracked his code and didn't even really realize it until much later that the conversation we had that night was going to spark a friendship and a working relationship that would last, decades. He never likes to sit in with other bands, but he got impressed by the audition where he actually sat in on my audition, and we played Man on the Silver Mountain and Heaven and Hell together. And then next thing I know, we're friends and we're working together side by side, and it was just amazing, and the time that I spent doing demos, working in the studio with Ronnie, he was the producer, I had soaked up a lot just then. And so there was one day where he actually told me while I was still in Rough Cutt, he goes, Goldy, if Vivian ever doesn't work out, you'd be my first choice.
Wow.
And he's a man of his word. That's why there was no auditions. When Vivian was out, I was in, and that was it.
That is an incredible story.
So I did the work, but I still, I realize that I'm not every Dio fan's favorite guitarist. A lot of things that Doug did, a lot of things that Rowan did, and a lot of things that Tracy G did are just absolutely amazing. But they had a certain thing. They already kind of had their thing developed. My thing really hadn't quite developed yet. And I never quite understood why Ronnie, there was things that I wanted to do that actually ended up on, Lock Up the Wolves and Strange Highways and stuff like that. I'm like, well, how, what's going on here? I wanted to do that, and he would say no, But I didn't realize that, there was certain things that I still needed to learn that these guys had already learned. I mean, Doug is just absolutely amazing. That guy, is practically untouchable. Rowan, his contribution to the music for Lock Up the Wolves is just undeniable. And Tracy G, same thing. And it is just now that I'm starting to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, because some of my best guitar playing really hasn't been captured yet. Some of my best songwriting hasn't been captured yet. And some of my best recording techniques haven't been captured yet. But there's hints of that on this record.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about to come out, in all the different projects that are coming up this year and the next couple of years, that I'm still now just able to really stretch my wings and understand what it was he was trying to do for me back then.
Well, let me tell you personally, the DVDs, that you appeared on with Dio are incredible with you. It's I find you represent the era very well, and congratulations. You're very humble the way that I'm seeing it now.
well, thank you for that. But but I'm also very grateful, because that man, there was nobody like him. There was nobody like him, and I'll never forget. There was a time when we were in rehearsals, and he came over to me, and he goes, I want to pass the torch on to you, kid. And the man that toured with us, who was the closest with Ronnie, was standing right there, and he looked at me. And he goes, do you know what this means? I go, I know. He goes, this is big. I go, I know. I didn't quite fully understand what he meant by that way back then. Until now, it's hard to explain. I did a couple of songs as my own personal tribute to Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
That the guy who sang on it actually did such a great job. We're actually going to put a band together. But it took a long time. I lost a lot when Ronnie passed. And it took me a long time before I would ever get inspired to work with another singer again. And so those two songs were actually the beginning of me actually coming back alive. And they were, I don't know if you ever heard those songs, and if you're interested, when we're done with this interview, if you want to give me your email, I can send you the 2 MP3s, because I was able to really kind of utilize everything that I had learned from him. Because on his first public memorial, I told everybody that, I had learned so much by working side by side with him, that one day when I do end up creating original material, I want to be able to utilize all that I had learned in such a way that hopefully would make him proud. So when Wendy Dio heard these two songs, the first thing she said was, wow, Ronnie would be proud of you. And the second thing she said is, who's that singing?
Well, I got to hear that stuff. And to finish off, you work still with Destiny Bridge, as I see on your official website. How's that going, because it's been a long time you've been promoting that product.
Well, it's had a couple of hiccups, because there's been a couple of people that just kind of got in the way, and it was unfortunate, so I had to change it. But I'm going to start it back up again, because I hooked up this one guy. He was his music was awesome. And I hooked him up with two Grammy Award-winning producers who wanted to work with him and help him, because he wasn't, completely all the way there. And so I was in CC of the email correspondence with these guys. And it was something so simple, that they were just trying to tell him, there's a couple of things that I think you need to work on, that I think your songs could be stronger. And the guy says, actually, song number 11 is the strongest song. And so the producer goes, well, why don't you make song number 11 the first song on your CD? And he got so insulted by that he started to harass them and harass me. And another guy had a similar situation where you would think, dear Lord, I'm taking 15 years out of the struggle of going from nowhere to being able to work side by side with a Grammy Award-winning producer who worked with like Ozzy Osbourne and guys like that, who are contacting them through email saying, hey, I want to work with you and help you. And now they're getting harassed. So I had to kind of change things around a little bit. But now things are, hopefully we can avoid that. It's because it's really, it's the only difference between. Let me go here. When a girl introduces her boyfriend to her father, and she says he's a musician, all of the blood in his face, drains. But if she introduces him to her father as a doctor or a lawyer, her father is suddenly proud.
Right.
The only difference between us and doctors and lawyers is that doctors and lawyers have a place to go to learn everything they need to know before they become doctors and lawyers. There's no such place for musicians. And so I was trying to create that. All the things that I had learned over the years through both my failures and my achievements, I had learned so much because Ronnie and Wendy had taken me under their wing, and the managers from Giuffria, who's now my manager, Larry Harris, had taken me under their wings, and I learned a lot of stuff behind closed doors and how things worked. And even though the internet has changed things drastically, the process that's involved in reaching people's hearts through their music and wanting people to so much that they just got to have it, that process is still the same. And I learned that process, and I'm just now being able to kind of utilize that with people who don't have huge egos to say, I don't want to work that way. So I started turning that process onto my students, and they were flourishing. I'm getting guys going, Craig, I got a record deal. What do? I don't have a lawyer. Can you look over the contract? Dude, I got an investor, a millionaire to invest in my project. What do I do? I just got a summer scholarship, to a college. I just won a free scholarship. What do I do? And so it's just little by little, I started to realize that this, was actually working. So now I'm still going to continue, because I made a promise to myself that if I ever made it, then I would try to help other people.
Right.
And I want to make what was once wrong before I was born right before I die. And it's just too difficult for musicians to break into the music industry. And there's so many people out there that are so talented, and they're working, jobs that, there's nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5 job. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a musician and you have a gift, it shouldn't be that hard, to actually operate within the gift that you've been given.
Right.
So that's what I tried to do with that program.
I think it's a brilliant program. I mean, I'm even tempted to dive into that, Very good work, and very impressed with you, and Resurrection Kings, very proud of you, Craig.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, Craig, I really appreciate that, taking the time to, or getting the honor to interview you. You've been on my list for a long time, actually,
Oh, thank you, Jason. Well, thank you, but I've been doing interviews for 30 years, man, and it's very seldom that I get a chance to just really feel like, Ronnie did that. He would have these, every now and then he'd have this special connection, and it was just really nice. There's something special about you, and I appreciate it very much.
Oh, well, that's, you're making my day now. Thanks. Or my week. Or let's go further. You're making my month there, all right? So everything's great. Craig, you have a great time in the wonderful land of California.
It's hard enough. This world is hard enough, and that's why it's also very competitive.
You got that right.
When people get the slightest bit of information on, inside information, they huddle around it like squirrels gathering nuts for the winter, and nobody really shares anything, because when you share information, you actually are creating your own competition by doing so. And so I understand that, but see, I'm a firm believer in there's room for everyone. I think if somebody has a gift, and if somebody, everybody's special. Nobody gets born without a particular reason or something special deposited within them that they're supposed to bring forth before they die.
Mm.
So there's room for everybody, I say. So by sharing information, you're not creating competition. You're just, opening up the world to somebody else's gift.
Very well said.
So let's see what happens when you go through the book, because it's not really like take it from me, I know all, I know everything. It's really about just there's a lot of stuff in there that you're going to know already, Some of it's going to be confirmation that something that you've known all along, but now you know for sure.
Right.
And so it might even be just one little piece of the, because a puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle isn't complete until that last piece is put in there. There might just be just one little missing piece of the puzzle, because not everybody's born with all the information. We have to, a lot of people have to go to college and stuff. In fact, this book, the information contained within it, I was certified by the state of California to teach the music industry and songwriting at college level. And then later, my class was approved by educators to be part of the bachelor's degree program.
Wow, that's good.
But actually, it's not just it is an actual education. And even though you may not want to go the record company route, but I have. This whole thing is about helping people. There's a network of people. There's record companies, there's managers, there's agents that can help. And if some people want to market themselves on the internet, we have, internet marketing experts that can help. One of my students just recently contacted me telling me he makes $75,000 a year and just bought himself a $300,000 home.
Oh, my God.
All of that to the information that I gave him.
Wow.
And so it works. It's just a matter of, implementing it.
Dedication and reading and believing it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. We'll stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, so please email me.
As soon as I can. Book as well.
I appreciate that a lot. A fan for life there. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, my man.
All right. See you.
Okay, take care.
You too.